At 7:42 a.m., a black man stood in silence outside a police precinct, and 5 minutes later, he was face down on the pavement for the crime of standing still. Broadway, New York City. The city ran on nerves and espresso. Morning heat rose from grates. Yellow cabs weaved like impatient wasps. Shoes slapped concrete in rhythm with ringing phones and bodega orders. But one man didn't move. He stood still, hands in the pockets of a navy windbreaker. Tall, broad, black, 30-something. He stared up at the chipped sign above the squat gray building. Precinct 12. The O in precinct had long faded. No one ever bothered to repaint it. People passed him like he was a light pole. Or a warning. A patrol car pulled up with a sharp squeal. The door flew open before the engine fully stopped. Officer Jenkins stepped out like he'd been waiting all morning to assert himself. White, clean buzz cut. Aviators. Late 20s. The kind of swagger you only get from wearing a badge before you've earned a conscience. "You waiting for someone?" Jenkins called out, tone sharp, authoritative, almost performative. "Or casing the joint, huh?" The man didn't flinch, just blinked once. Calm. Jenkins walked closer, palm near his holster. "You hear me? ID. Still nothing." The man reached slowly for his back pocket, but Jenkins didn't wait. He shoved the man hard, spinning him to the wall. Hands on the concrete. "Now!" Gasps broke out behind them. A bus had just stopped at the corner, passengers craning their necks out the windows, phones raised. The man's forehead pressed against the wall, hands flat. He didn't resist, didn't shout, didn't even ask why. "What's he doing?" someone whispered nearby. "Nothing," another voice said. "That's the problem. He's not doing anything." Jenkins was barking into his radio now. Possible loiterer, requesting backup, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear, loud enough to say, "Look, world, I've got this under control." He frisked the man roughly, patting down every pocket, searching for something, anything, to justify what was already unjust. "Not resisting?" Jenkins muttered. "That's almost worse." The man said nothing. He just stared at the Precinct 12 sign like it owed him something, like it had once meant something more than what it became. Across the street, a siren howled, but not police. A sleek black SUV with tinted windows glided to a stop. From it stepped a woman in a tailored gray coat, stiletto heels clicking like gunshots against the sidewalk. Her walk was decisive, presidential. Eliza, is that?" someone murmured. Deputy Mayor Elizabetta Torres didn't answer. She didn't need to. She strode straight to Jenkins. "What?" she demanded. "The hell is going on here?" Jenkins stiffened. His voice tried to sound casual, but it cracked. "Ma'am, conducting routine ID check. This man was loitering, possibly scouting." "Possibly," she snapped. "And what did he do?" Jenkins hesitated. "Didn't comply when I asked." "That's a lie," a voice said. Quiet, but unmistakable. It came from the wall. The man turned, and for the first time, he spoke. "I was complying. You never asked. You decided." Jenkins laughed nervously. "Who the hell do you think you—" But Elizabetta was already moving. She stepped past Jenkins, placed a gentle hand on the man's shoulder, and whispered, just loud enough, "They didn't recognize you." The man looked at her, then at Jenkins, and back again. There was no anger on his face, just a strange, solemn calm. "No," he said. "They didn't." He reached slowly into his jacket pocket. This time, no one dared stop him. He pulled out a slim black wallet and flipped it open. The gold badge caught the sun. Commissioner Charles Raymond, NYPD. Gasps. audible now. Someone dropped their phone. Jenkins paled. He backed up 2 steps without meaning to. No, that's… you… The man turned fully now, facing the officer who had cuffed him without cause. His voice was calm, controlled, but the force behind it was undeniable. "I spent 20 years in this department," Charles said, "but I had to leave the uniform behind to see it clearly." His voice rose slightly. "You saw a threat, not a citizen. You saw skin, not status, and you acted. Fast." Jenkins stammered. "Sir, I didn't…" Charles walked past him, slowly, deliberately. He looked to the crowd, their phones, their silence. "Don't delete your videos," he said. "Don't shut your mouths. Today's evidence is tomorrow's reform." He turned to Jenkins, now frozen like a man who just looked in a mirror and didn't like the reflection. "Take your badge off." Silence. "Sir." Charles stepped forward, inches away now. "Take your badge off." Jenkins' hand shook as it reached for the clasp. The badge hit the pavement with a metallic clang. Charles looked at it for a moment. "Now you look how I felt. For years." 10 minutes later, the precinct's press lines were jammed. People flooded social media. "Commissioner Raymond Desar Justice wears badge. He did nothing." And in that moment, somewhere between chaos and clarity, a man who was too black and too calm had become exactly what the system feared: seen, respected, unignorable. 10:05 a.m. City Hall, Lower Manhattan. The briefing room looked like a war zone, not from damage, but from energy. Phones buzzed, staff rushed, screens showed live social feeds. Deputy Mayor Torres stood at the head of the table, composed, lethal. "I want statements ready by noon. Press conference at 2. Legal review of the footage. And someone call HR at NYPD. Jenkins won't be collecting a pension if I can help it." No one dared interrupt. Behind her, standing like a granite pillar, was Commissioner Charles Raymond, still in the same navy jacket, still calm. But now, the calm didn't look passive. It looked like command. A young intern hovered with a water bottle. "Commissioner, would you like…" Charles raised a hand, just slightly. "Enough. I don't need water. I need a list." "Of what, sir?" "Every officer in the 12th who's had a complaint for racial profiling. I want their body cam logs for the last 30 days, and I want internal transfer requests for any non-white staff in that precinct, especially ones denied." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The room had never been so quiet, with so much noise. Back at the precinct, Officer Jenkins sat alone. The interrogation room was suddenly unfamiliar. Fluorescent lights too bright, his own breath too loud. He'd arrested dozens in this very room. Today, the silence handcuffed him. Across the table, Captain Morales, Latina, sharp-eyed, opened a manila folder without looking at him. "You know what I hate, Jenkins?" He said nothing. 2 kinds of cops, racists and cowards pretending not to be. He swallowed. "I didn't know who he was." "That's the problem," she snapped. "If you need a badge to respect someone's rights, you shouldn't be wearing one." The door opened. Charles walked in. Jenkins flinched, the way rookies do when they hear a loaded weapon behind them. Charles didn't sit, just placed a single photo on the table. Jenkins didn't touch it. It was him. Body cam frame. One hand on a black man's shoulder. The man calm, still, submissive. "I was that man," Charles said. "But I was also every man who stood like that and couldn't show you his badge." Jenkins finally spoke. "I messed up." "No," Charles said. "You revealed yourself." Outside, a crowd was forming. Not a protest. Not yet. But something was growing. Something with signs, chants, phones, and fire. On cardboard, "We are not suspicious. We are standing. Recognize respect before you recognize rank." A young black girl held a sign. "My brother stands still too." Should he run instead? By noon, Charles was back on a podium. Cameras rolled. Reporters leaned forward. "I've served in silence long enough," he began. "Today, I speak as a commissioner, but more importantly, as a man who's walked through every checkpoint of American suspicion." He looked out at the crowd. No notes, no teleprompter. This city's police culture doesn't need reform. It needs a reckoning. A journalist raised a hand. "Commissioner, are you saying the NYPD is institutionally racist?" Charles paused. Not to think, but to decide. "I'm saying the badge is not immune to fear, and too often, fear wears a badge." Gasps, clicks, live tweets already going viral. Another question. Will Officer Jenkins be terminated? Charles didn't blink. He's already disarmed. Whether he wears the uniform next week isn't my concern. Whether the public can trust the uniform again is. Behind him, Elizabetta Torres leaned in, whispering, "That was the hammer. Ready for the nails?" He nodded once. 3:40 p.m. Commissioner's office. A team of data analysts projected statistics onto the glass wall. In the last 5 years, Precinct 12 received 314 complaints for unjustified stops. 78% involved Black or Latino men. Of those, 92% were never charged with anything. Another screen. Transfer request logs. Denied. 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 Names circled in red, all of them non-white. A quiet voice spoke from the back. "Sir, this isn't just Jenkins. It's the system around him." Charles nodded slowly. "Then we don't fire a man. We indict a structure." He turned to Elizabetta. "Get me the academy schedule. Tomorrow I teach the first class myself." Meanwhile, on the street, a teenage boy stood beside his mother, both holding signs. "He looks like you," the boy said, eyes on Charles in the window above. His mother smiled. "That's the point." Later that night, a boardroom in the first precinct. Not a single journalist was present, only top brass. A white-haired chief leaned forward. "Charles, you realize what you're doing, right? You're opening floodgates." Charles folded his hands. "No," he said. "I'm pulling people out before they drown. You're accusing half your department. I'm holding them accountable. If the badge is clean, it survives scrutiny." The room fell silent. Then, "You're making enemies, Raymond." He stood. "Good," he said. "Maybe they'll finally show themselves." Midnight, Charles's apartment. He sat alone, a glass of water untouched beside him. The day replayed in fragments. The wall, the badge, the silence, the cameras. He opened an old box from under the couch. Inside, his first NYPD uniform. A Polaroid from his academy graduation. A note from his father. "Never forget, son. Some walls are built to keep us out. Others, to test if we'll break through." His phone buzzed. An anonymous message. Just 4 words. "We see you now." He looked out his window. The city pulsed below. He whispered, "Good." 10 a.m. NYPD Academy, Brooklyn. The room was silent. Not from boredom, from something else, something deeper. Cadets sat up straighter. Instructors, usually indifferent, leaned forward. At the front stood Commissioner Charles Raymond. No notes, no smile, just truth. "I was profiled by one of my own this week," he began. "Pinned to a wall like I didn't belong in the city I've protected for 20 years. A murmur. A few lowered eyes. A few clenched jaws. And if it can happen to me, imagine what happens to the people we swear to serve. He held up a phone. Footage played, body cam from Jenkins, the moment he shoved Charles to the wall. Silence. Then another clip. A different officer. A young black man in a hoodie, hands up, trembling, as two cops mocked his posture. Then another, and another. By the fourth video, someone whispered, "Jesus." Charles clicked off the screen. "This is not training material," he said. "This is a mirror." He looked directly at a row of white cadets in the front. "You were taught that silence keeps you safe. I'm here to tell you, silence makes you complicit." He paused. "I will not rebuild this department on fear. You're either here to protect justice or protect yourselves. There's no third option anymore." No applause, just impact. Noon, Precinct 12, main floor. The desks were quiet, emails unopened, radios hushed, until the door swung open. Charles entered with 2 internal affairs agents and a rolling case full of sealed folders. Every eye followed him, some hostile, some curious, some afraid. He walked up to the duty sergeant. "Clear out the break room. I need a table." "Sir?" He didn't repeat himself. 10 minutes later, the break room was a war table. Charles stood behind the case, opening folder after folder. "This," he said, holding up the first file, "is a review of every stop made by officers in this building over the last 6 months. We've identified over 300 undocumented stops, 41 complaints dismissed without interviews, and 17 tampered dashcam records." A ripple moved through the room like electricity. Someone cursed under their breath. Charles kept going. "Starting today, an audit team will monitor every civilian interaction coming out of this precinct. You will wear active body cams, no exceptions. You will log every stop, every stop." He met eyes with the watch commander. "And if you don't want to, there's the door." 3 p.m., Mayor's press room. Charles stood at the podium again. This time, behind him, public defenders, reform advocates, and retired officers of color. He spoke with measured force. "We don't need a different kind of policing. We need a different kind of police, human, accountable, awake." A journalist raised a hand. "Commissioner, what about the officers who haven't been caught but are part of the culture?" Charles let the silence stretch before answering. "They're about to learn what it feels like to be watched." Then, the bombshell. "As of this moment, I'm reassigning every officer with 2 or more unresolved civilian complaints to community integration duty. No desk work, no car patrols. They will walk the neighborhoods they ignored, meet the people they once dismissed, understand who they protect and why they failed them." The room exploded. Reporters shouted questions, but Charles didn't stay to answer them. He turned and walked out, like a man who'd already said everything worth saying. 6:15 p.m. Jenkins's apartment. The doorbell rang. Jenkins opened it to find a courier holding a plain envelope. No badge, no escort, just a single letter. "Your badge was a privilege, not armor. You failed the privilege. Welcome to life without the armor." CR inside was a pink slip and an assignment list. Sanitation detail. Bronx flood cleanup assistance. No appeal. 8:40 p.m. Brooklyn. At a candlelit vigil in front of a church, Charles stood among community members. No cameras, no staff. A young woman approached him, no more than 20. She held up her phone with shaking hands. "This is you, right?" she said softly. "In the video?" He nodded once. She bit her lip. I watched it with my brother. He cried. He's 17. Said he didn't know people like you existed inside the system. Charles looked at her. They do. But sometimes we forget we're allowed to make noise. She stepped forward and hugged him. Not the kind of hug people give leaders, the kind they give witnesses. 11:58 p.m. City Hall rooftop. Charles stood alone, tie loose, looking out over the skyline. Elisabetta joined him, holding 2 coffee cups. He took one. You know what you started, right? She asked. He smiled faintly. Yeah. It won't be easy. It's not supposed to be. She looked at him. So what do we call this? He thought for a long moment, then said quietly, The beginning.